All right, everyone. I am pleased to be here today with Chef Pat Newton. And as we get started today, I was just hoping that you could introduce yourself. We'll start out with a brief introduction and tell us how long you've been cooking with cannabis for.
My name is Pat Rodrigo Newton. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I've been cooking with cannabis for the last 20 years, professionally, maybe for the last 15. Um, I'm just an advocate for the plant. I love being active, I'm artistic. Um, and really, I'm just here to share a little bit about me. And that's what I like to do in the space is just create and connect with people. And I think that's part of the most amazing thing about cannabis is that it brings people together. And that's near and dear to my heart when it comes to the topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And 20 plus years with culinary cannabis is, I don't know if you said 20 years with culinary cannabis, but cooking professionally for 15. I mean, that's a long time. You have a ton of experience. And the reason we're chatting today is because you are the winner of the So You Think You Can Cook with Cannabis Ontario edition. So just let's start out with a big congratulations because I was able to attend the event. It was really cool. Was this, I mean, with all your experience in with cooking and cannabis, was this your first competition?
This was my second culinary competition. I
Okay.
competed when I was in college. I went to George Brown College. I studied chef training and food and beverage management. And during one of the March break, Corby's, which is a big alcohol distributor, they held this thing called Top Server, and I ended up winning that as well.
Oh, wow. You got a track record now.
Yeah, I'm stacking them up.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool experience as well. Kind of different, but there
Right.
was kind of that top chefy aspect where you had to create your own cocktail and stuff, and um, yeah, on the
Yeah.
fly.
So this was obviously your first competition then where you were cooking specifically with cannabis. Was there anything that you did in particular to prepare for the event?
I just went back. I went back and I think the most amazing thing about this competition, it kind of like reignited my passion for cooking and cannabis. I've been doing a good amount of self discovery and reflection over the last like maybe 18 months, definitely the last year. And I think it's exactly what I needed because I went back into my archives and was looking through recipes and came across a whole bunch of photos and recipes and dishes and stuff like that that I had done in the past. So I think just kind of digging in the crates is probably the most prepping that I did for it.
Right. Okay. So you're going into the archives, and of course, with all the experience that you have, there was lots to dig up, I'm sure. Now, I have to say that your execution and presentation was like exemplary. And one of the things that really stood out for me was the smoking bong from which you poured your cocktail, your mocktail, if you will, because there was no alcohol in it. But can you talk about what you prepared for the competition for those who weren't able to be there and how you decided on that particular menu?
Cool. Uh, so I like to tell a story when I'm cooking and when I'm hosting specifically. Not every dish tells a story, but if I am hosting people, I like to sort of have it. There's a theme or there's something that goes along a bit of a journey. And so when I thought about cooking weed, or sorry, just even using cannabis, there's always that ritual of breaking down the bud, rolling up a joint or packing a bowl, and then sessioning it and smoking. So I wanted the three courses of the meal to sort of reflect all three of those aspects of the culture. So the first part was breaking it down. Um, I was going back and forth on what I wanted to do, but just a small background is I went to go visit the space maybe 2 weeks before the competition and got to meet Chef Ted. And he had me try the Nashville deviled egg,
Okay. Yeah, we
right?
all got served that in
Yeah,
the
exactly. It
audience.
was part of your like infused meal. So I decided to do a duck confit croquette Nashville style. Um, and as you know, cannabis is alcohol and fat soluble. So the confit is an amazing way of introducing cannabis and infusing passively while getting a lot of the flavors of the whole plant extraction. So confit was right up my alley for something that I wanted to showcase for the competition. And I served it on a rolling tray, but that wasn't it. We were sort of cuffed a little bit with this competition. given that every dish could max out at 5 milligrams of THC. So it was more a showcase of, how could you potentially use cannabis, and what methods could you use to infuse, even though they were low dose. So on the rolling tray, you're breaking up cannabis buds. So I made some crackers that looked just like cannabis nugs, and they were infused with cannabis butter. And so you weren't infusing your dish until you put the nugs into the grinder and garnish your dish with the nugs, which would add like a really nice crunchy texture to the dish, and sort of make it really playful. So that was the breaking it down, and then rolling it up. I was like, okay, how are we going to roll? So in bartending, if you take a cocktail in one glass and you pour it into the other glass and you go back and forth, that's called rolling, right? So you're rolling. So I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll play on that. And then I saw these glasses that spin. I was like, oh, this is just beautiful. It just wrote itself, right? So I was like, how am I going to serve it? And I thought, you know what? I wanted to actually initially use the bongs as the glass, for everybody would have their own bong and they could drink out of it with a straw. But I just thought, for presentation's sake and just for that sort of that aspect of it being a show, why not just go all out and get a big bong? And I bought some dry ice and put it in there, so it was had that whole effect of it smoking. And I just thought it was like, it's kind of gimmicky but super playful, and I think that's just kind of what I'm all about. So that was the rolling aspect. And then the smoking, I'm not a huge dessert guy. I do have sweet teeth, but I like candy, like gummies and stuff, maybe a bit of chocolate. So dessert was always a bit of a toss-up for me. So I decided to do creme brulee, which is my favorite dish. And once again, you could slowly, passively infuse cream with cannabis. I actually didn't decarboxylate the cannabis because of our restrictions. So I just really wanted to just get a bit of that THCA, or just raw nug flavor in there, and just sort of just have that aspect of flavor, but while it not being too overwhelming. And I did an ice cream blunt. So I just did a pistachio and salted caramel ice cream blunt and dipped that in chocolate. And I just thought it was. I actually wanted to serve that dish in a dome, but there was just so many moving components. I was already like trying to bring everything together that I was like, okay, like it's already been done. So,
Right.
but ultimately, it would have been cool to open it up with a puff of smoke, and yeah.
I think you made up for it with the smoking bong though, because everyone was just like, "Oh, that looks really cool." And like you
Yeah.
did have those spinning glasses, which also had like a salt rim of some kind on it as well. So like you thought of every aspect. And also with the Nashville spice, like, I mean, if you want to impress a judge like Chef Ted, who happens
Yeah.
to own the Joint Barbecue, I think that seems like a pretty smart way to approach it. So I thought the presentation was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, and the storytelling aspect, I mean, that's why everybody was there, right? So now you are one of 6 competitors, and collectively you all had a whole ton of like culinary and cannabis experience. Were there any competitors that you were kind of keeping tabs on as you're preparing for the event, knowing that the competition was going to be tough?
Like, not really, because I just didn't want to mentally go there.
Right.
Because you can go there and be like, oh, okay, like, I was like, no, I'm not like, I, I'm not like in my head usually. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to focus on my thing and just give respect to all the other chefs, and, just do what my expression of cannabis is. And I just stayed in my lane, and that's just sort of how I approached it. But like, I was tempted from time to time to be like, am I going to like maybe play this game or like do something like that? I was like, nah, just like, hopefully they can do their best on the day too, so that we could all have a good showing. I think that's sort of to where I was.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, that makes sense. I did hear a
yeah.
little bit about how Chef Terrence was trying to find out what other people were preparing ahead of
Oh,
time, but
yeah. Well, I
yeah.
mean, I guess we all have our different approaches. But the one thing is that Chef Melissa and I have worked together, and she's helped me, and we've known each other for quite a long time, and have shared a lot of space in the cannabis space together. So Yeah, I was like, oh, is she gonna kick my ass? Like I didn't know what was gonna go on. I was like, whoa, cool. Like, let's go.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It was tough competition because I mean, I really loved her menu as well, like the
Yeah.
menu that she had that was passed around the audience. So that was a really nice touch too. But I
Oh
can
yeah,
only
that's good.
imagine that the limitations, like, did you the THC limits, you all must have had to work within that because you were one of the last competitors to present your food, which means some of those, like the judges could have been getting pretty high at that point.
Yeah.
So did you have to like really like, if you were doing this in a different context, how would you have changed the menu?
Um, I probably wouldn't have actually, and I really am in the school of thought that less is more when it comes to cannabis, especially because a lot of cannabis users like to combust or like to smoke cannabis as well at these events and stuff like that. So you're always kind of mixing and matching a bit of those worlds. So I think you kind of make up for it a little bit with a little bit of the edibles. Maybe just you know, maybe I would just made my infusions a little bit more, or would incorporate more into the cannabis comfy, cronfy aspect, just to make that maybe a little bit stronger and pronounced. But other than that, you know, it's about using all of the different derivatives, so different cannabinoids as well. I'm big on terpene flavors and the flavonoids. I think like that's a massive aspect of the therapies that cannabis offers, and so I like to use a lot of cannabis derived terpenes. Pardon.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up actually, because terpenes and flavonoids and even the undecarboxylated like
Mhm.
THCA, CBDA, which you already mentioned, are definitely very therapeutic. But in most edible making, I think a lot of that stuff is lost when you decarb and infuse. So how do you approach that so that you can like maintain the terps when a lot of the times if you're decarbing, you're going to lose a lot of terpenes?
Yeah, absolutely, you do. I think it's kind of like good barbecue, low and slow. If you're gonna cook your nugs up, if you're gonna toast them in the oven or something like that, or do some sort of like a crude um, uh, decarboxylation, uh, just go low and slow. I put the oven as low as I can, and I put it in there for like 40 minutes. You know, to just really like not change the color of the bud too much. You know, if an oven comes up, and also I put the pan in there. So I let it come up to temperature. I don't just like shock the nug and put it in at like 180
Right.
or 225. You know, it is something. It does, you know, if we're talking about maximum preservation, and those are like factors that I'd like to put into consideration. But passive infusions is always the best. Full flower, whether you do it sous vide in a bag or whether you do it in a bath water or you know in a glass jar in a bain marie basically, or even in fats, and you just do it low and slow for like 6 8 hours. Just make sure the measurements are on point so that you know what your ceiling is. Right, you're probably not always going to hit the ceiling, but at least if you know what the max potentially could be, then at least you have something to play with. And then you can get that length, right? You don't need to worry about maybe stopping it at an hour or 2 hours. You can just let it go for like, you know, some people do the slow cooker crock pot method, and they put it in there for 8 to 12 hours, and it, you know,
Mhm.
it almost tastes like spaghetti sauce. It's like it just builds these crazy flavors. And it's zesty.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So if you're wanting to maintain those terps and flavonoids and all those good things, low and slow is kinda the approach that you take. Yeah,
Low and slow, good quality fats or good quality ingredients, and then yeah, just use the whole flour so that you can just get the entire full spectrum extract.
right.
Hmm.
Now, as far as the presentation goes, because like you said, you had a theme everyone had a
Oh, sorry.
theme.
Can I just sort of add one
Yeah,
other thing because it just
yeah,
made me think about. There's so many aspects to cover when we're talking about this. It's like sometimes you're just
I
like
know.
you bring them in, right? I love using live rosin, pressed live rosin. When they press it and that decarboxylate it right there, so you can use those extracts, and they're like
Right.
super flavorful. Like they have everything, right? And then it could but it saves you on having to do like that long drawn out passive infusion process. So if you're looking for like a quicker way to infuse, and it's also great too because you have your calculations and your numbers, so you can easily dose for milligrams.
Yeah, and they're pretty. I mean, I haven't experimented a whole ton with concentrates yet with my own
Yeah,
infusions, but I know so many people are turning to them now for that very reason. Like,
yeah.
as you do have all those terpenes and stuff in them that just translates into your finished product. So that's probably something I need to be playing around with more. You're right. But
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Now, as the theme and story, I mean, everybody had like a theme and a story that they were sort of working around why they were there for the competition. Your presentation was fantastic. You clearly enjoy speaking in front of a crowd. Do you have any advice for others around building confidence for public speaking? Because, I mean, I've done Toastmasters, and I wish I had
Yeah.
your willingness to grab that mic and just get in front of a crowd and talk.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I've been working at it for a long time, and honestly, failing forward. Like the first time I spoke in front of a large crowd, I absolutely ate dust. I bombed so hard. It was at this um, award ceremony for a charity that we were part of, Sleeping Children Around the World. It was hosted by Pinball Clemens, and there
Oh,
was
wow.
500 people there at the Fairmont Hotel, and I went and accepted the award on behalf of our family. And but like I only found out that morning that I was going to do it, and my dad sent me the acceptance speech, right? And I started reading it, took one look at the crowd to engage, and then completely forgot where I was in the thing, and just ate it so hard, you know. And I was like, oh, that was brutal. But it didn't. Maybe it wasn't as bad, but the worst part was that there was like this 10-year-old kid who had probably been practicing his speech for months. He just tap danced on me on it with his speech, you know. Him and Pinball Clemens like had like a chest bump on the stage. I was like, oh, I didn't get a chest bump, you know. Um, I would just say is be prepared. Know what you're going to say. Read it. If you've rehearsed it, if you know what you're going to say, and you're allowed to just kind of come off a little bit more comfortable, have second nature. I think that's probably one of the most important things. And then just get your reps in. Just do it. I've had to force myself into it, and even still to this day, I still feel reflections. You know, it's not about that. It's just about sort of breathing, breathing
Right.
through it. Yeah,
Do you get nervous at all? I mean, you don't look nervous. By like from what I've seen, you don't look nervous, but
yeah, for sure. The cannabis helps with that.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's being prepared is great advice,
Yeah,
honestly, because I find in my own experience, a lot of the times, even if you are nervous, and I'm somebody that does tend to get nervous, most of the time the crowd wants you to succeed and they usually can't tell. Like, unless you're like obviously excessively sweating or something,
right.
if you've prepared,
Yeah,
people can't tell if you're nervous or if you mess up or whatever, and we're our own worst critics as well. So you come
absolutely.
off that stage, even for you when you're at that event, it probably wasn't as bad as you think it was, even if you didn't get the chest bump. But
Yeah, no, it was bad. It was bad. Yeah,
okay, well,
yeah. No, but
maybe
it's all good. You know, it's like I just turn those into victories. You know, it's
right.
like it's just, you know, there's a lot of
Yeah,
damage control out there, and it's just how you're going to bounce back, and are you going to put yourself in that position again? And I think if it's part of, you know, sort of broadening your comfort zones or your horizons and going into territories of work or aspects that you really aspire to do, then I say it's completely worth it to fail forward and to just you know to bomb. I've been doing stand-up comedy for like the last year or so, and do quite a bit of open mics, and I've had so many times where just like just get me off, just like
right.
get, you know, it's like, but I mean, you come back, you do grow from those experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah, you
Yeah,
definitely do. And I don't think there's anything more difficult than stand-up comedy, honestly. Like, right? Because when I was doing Toastmasters a long time ago,
yeah,
anytime they're like try and write a funny speech, it is so hard. So kudos to you for getting out there and doing that, because I think that's amazing. And obviously it's paying off because your presentation at the competition was great. Now, what is something that you believe about food or cannabis or cooking culture that you think most people in the industry might push back on?
mm, was that two things, two big things. One is smoking. like smoking is like really bad, and like everybody does it. It's probably like the elephant in the room, and everybody's blazing. And I know, and like there are benefits to it. I know for sure, but just as an athlete and somebody who has been combusting for cannabis for like probably like better part of like 25 years, like I can feel the impact, and I just it's probably it's kind of a buzzkill, but like the sooner that we can kind of figure out better methods of consuming and having that ritual and that kind of stuff, I think we'll all be better off. Because I want people to live and to be healthy, and that's a self-inflicted wound, and I inflict it all the time. And the other one is alcohol. Alcohol, it takes place all the time. Cannabis events, all that kind of stuff. And I know that like a lot of chefs probably say, oh, I don't serve any alcohol at my dinners and that kind of stuff. And I agree. I'm not going to give you alcohol, but if I'm hosting for people and that's that they want to do that, because it happens whether I'm there or I'm not there. I just would rather that it's controlled, and like maybe it's more mindfully done. It's like a pairing. When you go for like a nice tasting menu and you get your meal paired, and so you have like 2 ounces of wine with each course. Like I think it'd be better to do something like that than to say, oh no, like wouldn't do it, but like they're gonna chug beers when you bounce and or
Yeah,
whatever. You know what I mean? It's
I
definitely
do.
there, and because cannabinoids are alcohol derivatives or alcohol soluble as well, like you can't leave that out of the equation. There is a place for that, you know. Uh, yeah, so I'm pro alcohol, it in moderation, and I think it exists in the space a lot more than we might want to acknowledge.
Oh, for sure. Well, I think partly that's also because just our cannabis laws right now, like we're both in Canada. So,
Mhm.
we're pretty restrictive with what you can do around, like, we don't even have cannabis lounges yet or anything, which is kind of wild.
Right.
But also
Yeah.
the suggestion that people aren't doing a crossfade is kind of, I mean, I've done it lots of times. I would say it's more of a, somebody who should have experience with combining the two things. You don't want somebody who's never consumed cannabis and never had alcohol together to do that the first
That's
time
the
that you ever
recipe
met.
for
But
that's the recipe for disaster.
it sure is.
Absolutely, yeah, and
Yeah.
exactly. Like I could say that we're professionals. We've been doing this for some time now. If you're a newbie or you're kind of curious or you're just thinking about trying things out, especially with cannabis, definitely don't do it with alcohol off the bat if you don't know how you're going to react. And so less is more. One
Yeah.
hit, one hit of good weed. You just need that much, and
100%. That is
and
so
and,
true.
and like you're like, whoa, like you can feel that.
Yeah.
That's like 1 milligram. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah. It adds
it's
up
more
really
than one
quick.
milligram. It feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and if also for people who don't like smoke very often, as much as you said that we should try and find other ways to
yeah,
consume, but if you're coming to it, you're not a frequent smoker, that one puff was going to do a lot more than you think because
yeah,
that's when people I think get themselves into trouble. They haven't smoked in a while and they consume again and then they're like, "Holy shit, that was strong." But that's also because you need a lot less than you think you do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's just there's just something about the combustion and blazing. Is that I don't know if it's like just the most romantic way that you can consume, and like you feel the effects pretty quickly, which is like that is actually pretty desirable because I want to feel good now, or like I want to
Yeah.
feel it, where like with the edibles or even with nanotechnology, water soluble beverages and stuff, like you can feel those pretty quick. You can feel them pretty quick. Um, uh, it's just so it's just so easy to get there like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really smoke joints anymore as like an asthmatic ex-cigarette smoker, so but there are some times where it's just so much easier to like roll up a joint, right? Like you don't have to have your vape is run out of batteries or like I've had that happen. You're just like, ah, fuck. Like there's just so many reasons why smoking a joint. I get
Yeah,
why it's even though we know it's not necessarily the best thing for us, I
yeah,
get why people are still hitting
yeah.
those joints for sure.
I
But
and just such a appreciator of good flower. Like that's just the best way to like to get to know it and break it down and have it on your fingers and smell,
The
it's just like,
ritual.
yeah, right, but like it's just good flower. Like that's the best way to consume it. You taste the terpenes on the dry tokes and like, it's just, there
Yeah.
is something just so like, just
Yeah. It's
magical.
it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just leave that there. But
Yeah.
now, as far as the competition went, every chef had a partner sponsor, and yours was Entheogenic Solutions. And I was hoping that you could talk a bit about that because, as I understand it, you're also involved in this company, and perhaps you can tell us more about it.
Yeah. Entheogenic solutions. So an entheogen is any type of substance that's used in spiritual or shamanistic practices to achieve levels of consciousness, different levels of consciousness or different mental states. And I think that that really encompasses a lot of things, a lot of aspects of myself and my two business partners. Colin, who is our master grower, is the one who sort of really conceptualized the whole entheogenic thing. And I just thought it was awesome,
Right.
and we just had an amazing opportunity to invest in a brand and decided to jump in, feet first, and we're doing it. And Entheogenic Solutions, we specialize, or we're focusing on living soil, organic grown cannabis. I'm actually at the facility right now, and if you want, we can just take a quick little stroll into some of the rooms, and I can show you a
Yeah,
couple things
sure.
that we got
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. But we're brand new. We're in our first harvest right now. We've just flipped over our plants. So beginning of August, we'll be looking at doing our first harvest, and it's pretty exciting times, and focused on quality. The earth, like it. That's what uh, in wine culture and viniculture, right? Terroir, the earth, that's such a big thing in the grapes, and the same thing goes for the cannabis. So we're really focusing on creating healthy, organic soil beds. And I mean, Colin, he's been doing so many cool things, but making so many different enzymes, and we've got worm houses now, and it's just
Oh,
like
cool.
really all encompassing. And I think it's going to pay off. And so, yeah, focus on quality over quantity. And we're the cannabis connoisseurs. Cannabis.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think people are definitely looking for that connoisseur experience as well, because there's certainly plenty of, you know, mids on the market. So, you know,
Yeah. No.
bringing something different is, yeah,
Yeah. It's always
appreciated.
it's always nice to have a couple different things in rotation if you're can be so blessed to do that. And uh, having a couple top shelfers is always pretty prime.
Yeah. Yeah. So before you give us our brief
Yeah.
little tour, our
Yeah.
last question for you today, Pat,
Yeah.
is what would surprise people about you?
Um, that I'm actually kind of a bit of a loner and a bit of an introvert. I put
Okay.
myself out there, and I'm super social, but man, I love like my own downtime, and just give me a paintbrush and or just like some dumbbells, and I just like hang out on my I love that space. I love to be in nature and just be on my own. I think that's like something that probably surprised people because I come off really social and extrovert, which I am. That's authentic me. But as much as that is, I love to just be in my own space.
Right. I love that. I personally consider myself an ambivert, which would probably be similar. Like, I do love that social time with my friends and stuff like that, but I need the time alone as well to sort of recharge and just do the things that I love to do. And I
Yeah.
think it's great when somebody loves their own company. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, me, myself, and I, my three best friends.
Yeah, yeah. I love
Absolutely.
that. Yeah,
Well,
so can you give us a tour then?
absolutely. But first, I wanna
Yeah.
ask you a quick little question because I've
Yeah.
been meaning to see the podcast and be on here. What would be your last meal on Earth?
Oh my God.
Some of your favorite? What are your heavy hitters?
I mean, maybe it's cliche. I do love sushi.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe a really nice steak, actually, because it's something I'm probably eating less and less. It's just getting so expensive. But I love grilling as well, like on a charcoal grill. So steak with
Oh,
some, roasted vegetables. That's always something. It's so hard to choose though. Like,
There's a lot of good ones. Yeah,
yeah,
charcoal grill, getting that flavor from the wood and like, oh,
yeah,
that's amazing. That's one of my favorite things. And then one last question for you too is
yeah.
like, what's one aspiration that you'd like to see the cannabis industry move towards?
Ooh, that's an interesting question because I find that I'm really drawn to the more community-minded spaces. Like, I just find, like, being in Canada and then probably in other places too, it's become very commercial, and that's fine, but I think sometimes we lose some of that cannabis rebelliousness that kinda came with the industry before legalization, so I'm really drawn to those spaces where people are talking about making their own edibles or growing their own weed or, sharing it with friends and family and that kinda thing, and there's definitely, I think, a space for a commercial market, but I would also love to see more craft growers as well and support those craft growers so that we have, like in Ontario with the beer market, it used to be like your Budweiser and your Coors Light, but now there's an explosion of craft beer,
Yeah.
and there's so many great options, and you go into the beer store, the liquor store now, and, like, it's incredible what you can find, and I would love to see the craft cannabis market more supported, I think, as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to be able to have the right activations, right?
Yeah.
To be able to like showcase it to all of its
That too,
what it is, because you go to these events and then it's sort of like, well, there's no cannabis on site. It's just sort of like a
which is kinda crazy at a
yeah, it's just
cannabis
kind of like a
event.
branding thing, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, it's great, but like, so yeah, it's more of like a regulatory frame thing, but yeah, I'd love to see the regulations sort of bend a little bit more in the favor of retails and being a
Yeah.
in marketing for sure. Marketing
Yeah.
is like
And
that's
to be able to also, like, the sometimes I find the packaging and the waste in the industry is also kinda wild, so, just being able to go in and pick something from a jar or have a bud tender help you
mhm,
instead of,
yeah,
buying your eighths or whatever in a little plastic container. That would be
yeah,
nice too, because 'cause it'd be nice to be able to see and smell what you're gonna buy. I think that would
yeah,
be really nice too, but I guess I have a pretty long list of things, but
yeah,
yeah.
for sure, for sure.
Lounges, you mentioned that, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, cool. All right, let's
yeah.
go. Let's go rip through this little
Okay,
space.
cool.
I'm just gonna put my booties on. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah.
We're specializing in 4 different strains at the moment. Uh, Death Bubba, Dante's Inferno, Pink Wagyu, and Halle Berry. So this is right here is our cloning mothering room. Um, So we've got our mother plants that we select our clones from. Right now we have everything on the floor, but these are our cloning beds. So it's kind of like it's kind of like the nursery.
Right.
And then um, we're the, we have 4 specific rooms, and this is our flowering room. So this
Wow.
recently got put on 12 and 12.
Okay.
Um, and these are all of our 4 different strains. This is the Halle Berry. And the reason why we got these 4 strains from the nursery guy, the guy who gave us the clippings, is because they're all shown to have 29% THC and like 3% terpenes, really high flavor and cannabinoid compound structures in those flowers. So we're hoping to obviously do the best we can with those. This is our sort of like for our it's like for the teenagers before we get everything into flowering, we bring them in here. This is sort of kind of like the nursery as well.
Right. So it's kinda like your veg room, like where they're vegging?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. It is a bedroom, but it's more of like our starter bedroom. So we have 2 bedrooms. Um, we're figuring that out. It's kind of we're going as you go, and you're always learning something. So that's the interesting thing about paying for this kind of education. You know.
Right. I wonder if we lost them. Sometimes these buildings have so much concrete that the signals aren't always the best. Ah, nuts. Ah, well, friends, that was Chef Pat Newton. Oh, there we go. He's coming back.
Oh yeah.
There we go. I
Whoops.
was wondering if you
Whoops.
dropped for that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where I lost you in there, but that was our Big Daddy room. I was just showing you the soil fabric beds, and then
Right.
we have the fabric pots in there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's where I
every
lost you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much 99% of the dirt that's in here, I hauled in 40,000 pounds of dirt with my two hands.
Wow.
Every piece of earth was brought in by hand, and that's something that I'm pretty proud of. I don't know if we venture in there anymore, we might get lost in the woods. So I'm going to come back out here where I got the full bars before we sign off.
Yeah. No, that's
But
great. I really appreciate your
that's a bit of what we're
time.
working with right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really exciting. I'll be watching for that because hopefully it will be coming to market at some point down the road. I'm not sure where you're at with that, but that's clearly what you're going to be working on now that the competition is over.
Absolutely, yeah. I want to have everything. I want to fill the need from seed to feed, and
Love it.
yeah, everything encompassing for sure. I want to be we're introducing right now entheogenic athletics. We're going to be big in the fitness space right now, bringing people together from the industry, hosting things at different gyms around the world, around the country. And I think when the industry gets fitter, we all feel and do better. And I think that if you're going to promote active lifestyle brand, you really got to be about it. I dedicate a lot of my week to going to the gym and being active and those kind of things. And I really think that it's absolutely pivotal part of my energy and the ethos that I put out there. And I want to share that. I want to help people in the industry have the opportunity to come out and to do those things and then have the awesome products there so that we can help support the journey and be all encompassing.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I think people are looking for that. And there's no reason why cannabis and athletics can't be combined beautifully. Honestly, there's a lot of research behind that too. So
Yeah,
beautiful.
it really is. It really
Yeah.
is. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are currently doing it and that are big advocates for fitness and stuff like that. I've got so many people in the cannabis space that I admire that are all about, eat, train, treat, repeat. I love that philosophy. That's from Blessed Edibles, and I just think that that is what we need more of. And
Yeah, that's
here,
great. I will be watching for that, Pat, and I really appreciate your time today and the tour, and I wish you all the best in what's coming up, and I'll be keeping tabs on it.
Yeah, Margaret, thank you so much, and same to you for all your success and for giving people a platform and for sharing the things that you love. Thank you so much for that, and it's been an honor.
Thank you.
All right.